I want to say this. You guys are biased on ESPN. And I'm going to come on record and say that as far as in the boxing world.
But you think,
Floyd Money Mayweather, the Michael Jordan of boxing. He was recently a guest on ESPN's First Take, in which he called out ESPN for being heavily biased when it comes to the sport of boxing, as you all heard on the audio. With that being said, during the interview, when Floyd Mayweather told the truth, the panel reaction was priceless to say the least. Especially Max Hypocrisy Kellerman, the maximum hypocrisy on ESPN given by Kellerman. He was in disbelief that Floyd Mayweather came on their show to promote his fighter, Gervonta Tank Davis, while airing out their clear bias boxing agenda in the boxing community. On the other hand, Stephen A. Smith was also in disbelief, in which he replied to Floyd Mayweather, Who? Me? Now, regardless of who had the funnier reaction, you will think when it comes to two generalists, instead of them pointing fingers to who is actually biased, in which by doing so, they co-signed Floyd Mayweather, exposing themselves of being biased by admitting the fact the network they working for, ESPN, is biased. You will think a person in their position, a real journalist, will ask the $1 million question, which is, what are we being biased about, Floyd, that you felt like it was so biased that you had to come on our show in order to air out how biased we are? That's the question that should have been asked. That's a free advice to Max Hypocrisy Kellerman. On the other hand, Stephen A. Smith, he gets a pass because of the fact that he's a color analyst that does not claim to be a boxing expert the way Max Kellerman does. Even though he's been watching the sport of boxing for 40 plus years. It's so mind-boggling to me that a person that's supposedly a color analyst that study sports for a living watches a particular sport that he loved for 40 plus years. In return, while Stephen A. Smith is on his debate show, instead of debating, he will surrender, making casual talk points instead. That's why Stephen A. Smith needs to step his game up and put his foot down. They had Skip, a super decaf on steroids, who happened to be a decaf wizard, on ESPN talking nonsense for years when it came to the sport of boxing, and Stephen A. Smith won't even attempt to debate about boxing on First Take. And that's why the show is pretty much dying out when it comes to boxing, thanks to the fact that Stephen A. Smith have the maximum hypocrisy right in front of him. And instead of pointing out the hypocrisy by Kellerman, he will end up co-signing, agreeing with the hypocrisy, or not attempting to debate, which is killing the show ever since Max went from rapping to capping on ESPN. So why didn't Max Hypocrisy Kellerman ask the $1 million question? Why will Max allow Floyd Mayweather to come on their show, call out ESPN, their network, for being biased and allowing Floyd Mayweather to get away with it? The answer is very, very simple. Max Hypocrisy Kellerman is a lot of things. The nicest way to put it, he's the maximum hypocrisy, he's a liar, he's a decaf wizard. However, he is not a fool. You don't throw stones at TBE when you work at a glass house. In other words, Max Hypocrisy Kellerman knows the truth deep inside. That's why he's a hypocrite. That's why he didn't ask Floyd Mayweather the $1 million question, because he knows ESPN is heavily biased when it comes to the sport of boxing. They overpraise the hopeless fighters and always criticize the coincidentalist fighters. It's not a coincidence This was done on purpose. This was designed from the jump. You will think it's tailor-made the way ESPN is so biased as far as their agenda in the boxing world. Therefore, before I dissect what makes ESPN so biased, we have to give credit where credit is due. Floyd Mayweather, he redefined what being a boss is. Floyd Mayweather has to be the boss of all bosses. To go on ESPN, promote Gervonta Tank Davis, then call out ESPN for being biased on ESPN, man, that's a hit and don't miss right there. It's one thing if Floyd Money Mayweather went on PBC and called out ESPN for being biased. It's another thing to do so during Gervonta Tank Davis' workout media day. However, to actually go on ESPN, PBC network competitors, calling out ESPN for being biased, telling the whole absolute truth on the matter, is equivalent to beating your own enemy in his own territory. Is equivalent to a fighter that's supposed to be a matador fighting against a bull, goes toe to toe instead of boxing and knocks his opponent out. That's what I call beating your opponent at his own game. That's what Floyd Mayweather did, guys. That's what have to be done in the sport of boxing to make a change. And that's exactly what Floyd Mayweather is doing by airing out the double standards and the bias agenda by networks and media outlets, aka old media. It's so powerful to have the Michael Jordan of boxing, the face of boxing, to be the head of the movement in order to make a change. There is nothing more powerful than the voice of the people, other than the voice of the champions themselves. After all, the whole purpose of new media is that each fighter gets a fair shake on an even playing field. It does not matter the color of the person, it doesn't matter where the fighter comes from. Boxing is already a sport where fighters put their life on the line. However, sadly, old media have the system set up in which the fighters on the coincidental list, they dealing with all of the double standards. On the other hand, the fighters on the hope list receive all the hope benefits. That's better than Geico. Furthermore, Max Hypocrisy Kellerman, supposedly the face of boxing on ESPN. He's the expert when it comes to boxing on ESPN, at least on First Take. So you have Floyd Mayweather calling ESPN bias. In return, Max responded with, "It's not me." First of all, you the face of boxing on ESPN. And Max is admitting, well, what you guys see on ESPN that's biased, well, that's not me. That's ESPN. In other words, Max Hypocrisy Kellerman confirmed indirectly ESPN is biased. I don't know what's more shocking. Floyd Mayweather actually calling out ESPN for being biased on First Take, while the panel, instead of at least trying to get Floyd to retract his statement, they ended up pointing fingers at each other, or the fact that supposedly the face of boxing on the ESPN side, Max Hypocrisy Kellerman, confirmed that ESPN is biased. Therefore, what was stopping Max Hypocrisy Kellerman from asking the $1 million question? What makes ESPN biased? Therefore, since they did not give Floyd Mayweather the honors to air out and point out their bias agenda, I'm going to do the honors for Floyd. However, it's important to mention that Floyd Mayweather is very, very calculated with whatever he says. He don't say anything unless he could back it up 1,000%. And on a serious note, it was extremely smart on Max Kellerman's behalf for not asking the $1 million question, because it would have had definitely backfired. That's why Max utilized the technique of pointing fingers instead of responding to the facts. Therefore, if you may wonder, what is so biased about ESPN? After this video is over with, I could guarantee you the question will be rephrased to what's not biased about ESPN. So for starters, erasing Lomachenko record. I already made a whole video on that when Floyd Mayweather pointed out that Crawford should be on top of Lomachenko on the pound for pound list. And looking back today, he was not mistaken. During the whole journey, I co-signed Floyd Mayweather 1,000%. But that did not stop ESPN from placing Lomachenko as pound for pound number one over the undefeated Crawford, while erasing Lomachenko's loss in the process on more than one occasion. And to put icing on the cake, they had Crawford in the house during a first take interview, while they pretty much committed the crime fooling the casual fans off Crawford's name. I'm going to leave the full link for this video I'm referring to in the description and the comment section below. So click on the link if you want to watch the video. And always remember to keep in mind that the fighters I'm referring to, one fighter happened to be from the coincidental list, the other happened to be from the hope list. So moving forward, the situation with Tyson Fury failing a drug test for taking steroids, blaming it on a wild boar that happened to be extinguished, bribing a man to lie in court. Due to that, Tyson Fury got suspended from the sport of boxing, I believe, for 2 years, till Tyson Fury had his hope insurance to kick in. ESPN flipped that story from Tyson Fury getting suspended by cheating to a depression story. Now, obviously, when it comes to the decafs, their way of explaining this situation is, oh, well, ESPN is trying to market Tyson Fury, right? But when it was Sugar Shane Mosley who failed for steroids, they had him do an interview explaining himself, asking Sugar Shane all of the tough questions, such as, was he aware, so on and so forth. I didn't see HBO hide the fact that Sugar Shane cheated in order to market him when he just beat Oscar De La Hoya at the time. But when it comes to a fighter on the hope list, like I said before, that hope insurance is better than Geico. You get different type of benefits. However, the key here is you have to have the complexion for the connection. That way you are truly fully covered. You now have the complexion for the protection. Just like when Canelo Alvarez and Lomachenko requested a witness protection belt in order to avoid fighters on the coincidental list. A WBC French fries belt, equivalence of that belt you purchase from Walmart in order to keep your pants up. So these fighters on the hope list purchased belts to avoid fighters on the coincidental list. However, you never hear Max Hypocrisy Kellerman point out the fact that Canelo Alvarez and Lomachenko are the pioneers of purchasing belts in order to avoid fighters. But he will talk about Floyd Mayweather business decisions, accusing Floyd of being a businessman instead, which we're going to debunk that in a little bit. But moving forward, ESPN, they said Manny Pacquiao was the fighter of the decade before Floyd Mayweather fought him. Then, once Floyd Mayweather beat him in 2015, instead of giving the fighter of the year to the fighter who actually beat the fighter of the decade, they gave it to Ronda Rousey, which she ironically got knocked out that same year. Furthermore, ESPN placed Gennady Golovkin on the list of the best 25 fighters for the past 25 years, when he haven't proved anything at the time. Since then, Gennady Golovkin, greatest supporters from Max Hypocrisy Kellerman, admitted that Gennady Golovkin was a hype job. Also, Jim Lampley, his biggest fan, he stated that Gennady Golovkin's career is a failure. So that definitely backfired on ESPN. And to make matter worse, they still have him on the top 10 pound for pound today, when he lost to Canelo and had a beatdown by Deryachenko. But he's some way, somehow still on the top 10 pound for pound. But the guy who dominated Deryachenko, who's still undefeated, who Gennady Golovkin is avoiding to this day, Charlo, is not on the pound for pound. Matter of fact, neither of the Charlo twins is on the pound for pound when it comes to ESPN. Moving forward, during the interview with Floyd Mayweather, Max Hypocrisy Kellerman, he stated that Floyd Mayweather, you are known for TBE, but what you meant by that was the best outside of the ring, not in the ring. Somebody else could have that title. What is he talking about? You think Floyd Mayweather fought for 20 years in the pros, beat every single name to give that title to somebody else? But again, Max Hypocrisy Kellerman want to come out with his own theory. He want to speak for Floyd while he has Floyd Mayweather right in front of him, which is so mind-boggling to me. Max Hypocrisy Kellerman, he want to accuse Floyd Mayweather of being a businessman. In other words, a cherry picker, as Pretty Boy and Money May. Now, as far as Pretty Boy Floyd, we already know what time it is. Pretty Boy was the Boogeyman, the A-class Boogeyman. He was like the young Iron Mike. He had everybody shook. The question wasn't, who is Floyd Mayweather going to fight next? Who is Floyd Mayweather willing to fight next? No. The question was, who is willing to fight Floyd Mayweather next? That was the million-dollar question when Floyd was still Pretty Boy.
Another reason is he carefully selected opponents, knew when and where and when and who to fight, and basically changed the paradigm in boxing. I'll translate. He flipped the script. He didn't do what everyone wanted him to do. He was the one dictating what he was going to do.
You account for that.
Like I said before, I'm the black sheep of boxing. I'm fighting against the odds. But with prayers and God behind me, can't nothing stop me.
What odds are you talking about?
I'm saying, I feel like everybody is against Floyd Mayweather, but you gotta get respect where respect is due. I'm one of the best out there, pound for pound, and I prove myself over and over again. Floyd Mayweather's not ducking or dodging any opponent out there. I'm willing to fight whoever, whenever.
To challenge some of the 135-pounders.
Well, I would like to fight Prince Nassim. Hopefully, we can meet at 128, or he can come up to 130. We can fight, or I can fight the winner of Casamignon.
Prince Nassim.
It was hard getting down, to 130 pounds, but I got there. I'm looking forward to moving up to 135. Fighting Paul Spadafore, Jose Castillo, and hopefully moving to 140 and fighting Constantine.
Fight a Stevie Johnston or a Juan Lezcano?
Anything is possible. Like I said, I love to fight Stevie Johnson. I love to fight Juan Lezcano. But like I said, I'm looking forward to the bigger paydays, to the bigger fighters out there. Like I said before, I want to fight big fights, and I got to give thanks to all to God and my family, Team Mayweather. Without him, Floyd Mayweather wouldn't be where he's at today.
They're in the lightweight division still, like Lezcano and Casamayor and possibly Freitas, maybe some others. Why wouldn't you want to clean that up before you moved up in weight?
Well, I actually fight these guys in the past. I've been trying to get Lezcano, Casamayor, Freitas in the past. These guys didn't want to fight me, so I'm finna move up to bigger and better things. I'm looking forward to fighting Arturo Gatti next. That's a big pay-per-view fight for me, and that's what I'm looking forward to doing. I would love to fight Constantine, Arturo Gatti, the best out there. And I hear that Shane Mosley is coming down to 147. I hear Oscar De La Hoya is coming down to 147. For Floyd Mayweather is willing to go to 147 and fight Shane Mosley or fight Oscar De La Hoya.
fight in November. I don't know if I'll be able to properly train in November. Well, I don't know. Like I said, I mean, you know, as I'm sitting here, my tooth is a little loose right now. I'm trying to figure out if I gotta go to the dentist and give me some dentures in a second.
So you can't think ahead to Monday.
So I
even.
can't think ahead. You know, I've been feeling my tooth right now. I feel like it's coming out. I feel like it's coming out. So I gotta see what's going on. You know.
All right, thank you very
They
much.
didn't fight rather than Pacquiao didn't get the Mayweather.
I don't think it'll come across that way. I think people will say, why didn't they fight each other? And blame both guys, to be honest with you. Because the first negotiation we were against the blood test, and it was kind of our fault that the first time it didn't work. And then
As you guys heard on the audio of Floyd Mayweather calling out all of the best boxers of his time. And to add on to that, Floyd Mayweather was well paid as Pretty Boy. He was getting paid around 10 to 12 million at the time. Therefore, money was never the issue to why he was avoided. He was just too much of a bad man. Now, as money made, Floyd Mayweather became the draw so much that it was never about beating Floyd. It was about getting that payday, landing the sweepstakes. Nearly every fighter that lost to Money Mayweather became a bigger draw after that and got paid more than they was getting paid prior to losing to Floyd. In other words, taking a Floyd Mayweather L increased any fighter's stock. That's why they wanted to fight Money Mayweather. But even as Money Mayweather, Floyd still fought the best. It was Manny Pacquiao who turned down the fight in 2009 due to a drug test. However, Maximum Hypocrisy is not going to tell you the truth. He'd rather lie to your face instead. Floyd Mayweather fought Sugar Shane Mosley after his biggest win, knocking out Margarito. Floyd Mayweather also fought Ortiz after his biggest win, beating an undefeated Berto. Floyd Mayweather fought Canelo Alvarez, Maidana twice, Manny Pacquiao after that. All of that in the course of 20 years. Stayed on top of his game. But Maximum Hypocrisy will tell you otherwise. That Floyd Mayweather was a businessman. That he was the best outside of the ring. When he never lost inside of the ring, fighting the best of 2 decades. That's why Max is officially known as the Maximum Hypocrisy on ESPN. Because he wouldn't criticize fighters that's actually ducking, aka Canelo Alvarez, who purchased a belt to avoid Charlo, who's avoiding Andre to this day when Andre told Canelo, you don't have any cojones. Gennady Golovkin, another fighter that's ducking fighters like Charlo, Andre, and many more fighters that avoided Andre Ward in the past. You never hear Maximum Hypocrisy Kellerman call out Canelo or Gennady Golovkin for cherry picking. Matter of fact, it's the contrary. He will say Canelo is known for fighting the best, when he clearly knows the truth deep inside of Canelo ducking the best. That's why he's suing DAZN today, because they got tired of him cherry picking. So I'm gonna leave you guys with this. Muhammad Ali had his Howard of his time. Floyd Mayweather had Brian Kinney, who antagonized him throughout his career. Regardless of what Floyd Mayweather did, regardless if he did exactly what Brian Kinney wanted, for every single name Brian Kinney requested him to fight, he was damn if he do, damn if he don't. Brian Kinney never gave Floyd Mayweather his just due. Just like old media, just like Maximum Hypocrisy, just like Jim Lampley, and all of the decaf's wizards. However, the $1 million question: where is Canelo Alvarez, Brian Kinney? Where is Gennady Golovkin, Brian Kinney, or Howard? Where are they at? Why is it only fighters on the coincidental list they will get decaf wizards that antagonize them? However, fighters on the hope list, they always get the benefit of the doubt. They never have somebody pressing their buttons, even if they're cherry picking. On the other hand, Muhammad Ali, Floyd Mayweather, they could do all of the right things and still be criticized. Let that sink in. With that being stated, 3 things that will always come out: the sun, the moon, and the truth. That's why Floyd Mayweather always says, I'd rather be hated for telling the truth than be loved for telling a lie. And that's why the maximum hypocrisy always tell lies while he knows the truth, because he'd rather be loved for telling a lie than be hated for telling the truth. With that being stated, subscribe below if you're trying to get smart about them. And if you're trying to get dumb about a second, don't listen to these decafs. The dumb, casual ass fans that don't know shit about boxing, including old media. And shout out to my broski, my Akhi Dante, the entrepreneur of new media that I'm a part of. And if you're a casual fan and you want to be a hardcore, all you have to do is click on the notification bell to get notified every time I post or go live. On Split Decision, it's a boxing debate / talk show, mixed, master, engineered, produced by yours truly, Akhi, the past, present, and future undisputed pound for pound. When it comes to debating, I got these decals shook. They're scared to look every time Akhi's on TV, because the truth is always bad news. For these decafs, the truth is the decaf's kryptonite. They can't handle the truth, but they're allergic to it. The truth don't have to find the decafs. They come to hear the truth. That's why all the decafs are here in the comment section, but they don't have no cojones to call in on Split Decision. So quit treating Akhi like the Iron Mike of debating with a record of 1,000-0. Allah only made a couple things perfect: Floyd Mayweather undefeated record and Akhi on Split Decision. So call in, tune in. Shout out to all of my broskis. I appreciate the love and support. And to be continued on the next episode of Akhi, Ak TV. Peace, and we out here.